In the hands of the North Vietnamese, Russia's AK-47 assault rifle first went head-to-head with its American competitor, the M16, in the early 60s. The Vietnam War was the proving ground for these new infantry superguns. But which one was greater? From the West came the space-age M16. And from the East, the legendary AK-47. Until the end of World War II, the standard infantryman's weapon were rifles such as this Lee Enfield 303. Bolt action, simple and reliable, and accurate up to 1,000 meters. The trouble is its rate of fire. It only fires single shot. Alternatively, you've got machine guns such as this Sten gun. 9mm, fires up to 500 rounds per minute. And the trouble with this is it's not very accurate. So they needed a compromise. They came up with this. Part machine gun, part rifle. Not quite as accurate as the rifle, not quite as punchy as the machine gun, but a bloody good compromise. It's called the assault rifle. The AK-47 and M16 are the two most famous assault rifles in the world, but the hostile conditions of Vietnam meant it was not an easy battleground.
You were not able to see your enemy. You were in a jungle environment where all you were seeing was muzzle flashes or maybe some smoke. You didn't have a clearly defined target, so you would have an area target which you would spray with ammunition to keep your enemy's head down. Basically, it's whoever lays down a heavier volume of fires who's going to win.
It's firepower that counts. And with an assault weapon, you've got firepower.
An assault rifle could keep you alive, and soldiers developed very close relationships with them.
As an Army infantryman, this is sort of like an extension of my arm. It was always close to me. I would never go anywhere or think about going anywhere without reaching for my weapon. Wherever you go, on a chow line, to the latrine, it's always there. It sleeps next to you. And I always assumed that when I was frightened, it was frightened too, but it gave a certain amount of comfort that I wasn't alone. I mean, that may be crazy, but that's how I felt.
In 1990, 7 years before his death, M16 designer Eugene Stoner gave a rare interview with AK-47 designer Mikhail Kalashnikov. He recalled how US demands for a super-light weapon forced him to make radical advances.
That meant choosing lightweight materials right from the beginning. Aluminum in place of steel, fiberglass and construction in place of wood.
The M16 must have looked like something out of a science fiction book. It's made of high-quality steels and aircraft-grade alloys, even plastic. In the 60s, you'd only find plastic in a gun in a toy shop. And look at the precision of these parts, machined to tolerances you'd only find in aircraft. I'm very familiar with this weapon. I was seconded to the Canadian Army and trained with it. When you fire it, you'll see it hardly moves at all. Now, the Kalashnikov's a good old-fashioned lump of iron and metal. There's nothing about this that a soldier from any point of the 20th century would find unusual. It's made of big lumps of moving metal and very loosely assembled. Everything shakes about a lot. If the M16 is like a Rolls-Royce, then the Kalashnikov's more like a Ford Cortina. And when it comes to firing it automatic, you find it very hard to control. You see what I mean? A high-speed camera shows the high-precision M16 design moves very little. The low-precision AK-47 is throwing itself around. Look at the end of the barrel. At 14,000 times slower than normal speed, you can clearly see it flexing up and down. One reason for this wobbly performance is the way it works.
What's happening when this is fired is, of course, the cycle rate's fairly high, and you've got a really big hunk of metal coming back, and it's slightly off-center. Not much, but slightly off-center. So this thing's coming back, and then coming back forward. So you've got really two violent acts going on. And then if you have the round going off, you have a third violent act going on. The M16, on the other hand, this is a much smoother operating weapon. Consequently, the accuracy on this in full automatic fire is a lot better than is the AK.
We were told by the armor that this weapon had so little recoil that you could fire it full automatic from your forehead. I set that selector on full automatic and I put my rifle against my forehead, just like this. And what I wasn't aware of was where I was aiming my rifle at the time in this position, and it turned out when I pulled back on the trigger, it did go full automatic. The rounds went down about 10 feet in front of me. Everybody ran for cover, and I did find out it was a little bit more recoil than he initially told us it was. I had quite a headache for about half a day, but I had to prove it one way or the other.
If he'd tried that with an AK, it would probably have killed him. Round 1 to the M16, a higher precision weapon and far easier to handle as a machine gun. But how does it compare in its other role as a rifle rated by accuracy, not controllability? We've come to Morris County, New Jersey. The Picatinny Arsenal is where the US Army put their small arms to the test. We've set up targets at 200 meters, an easy distance for a decent rifle. First, the M16. What we're looking for is the grouping, how close the shots are to each other. Every one of the 5 shots strikes in the kill zone. Now the AK-47. Only one of the 5 shots even tags the lower left edge of the paper. The AK-47's out of its depth. The design of either gun shows that this difference was built into them from day one. Just look at how you aim them. You've only got to look at the sights on these two weapons to see the different philosophies behind them. The AK-47 is definitely a close quarters battle piece of kit. It's got what's called a bar and a notch sight on it, very much like on a revolver. And you know, no one became a great sniper with a revolver. The way you aim is this. You line up the top of the bar with the top of the notch to the rear of the rifle. It all feels quite clunky. Now, if you want to see a decent sight, let's look at the M16. This is what we call an aperture and leaf sight. What you do is line up the top of the leaf at the end of the rifle with the center of the aperture to the rear of the rifle, aim, and squeeze the trigger. When I was in the army, I could get 10 rounds into a 4-inch grouping at 100 meters. You couldn't with an AK-47. Out in open terrain, that extra accuracy could give the M16 a decisive advantage over the AK-47. Another win for the M16, far more accurate than the AK-47. Much of the difference in their performance comes not from the guns, but from the ammunition. A normal rifle bullet is so powerful that the recoil or kick of this bullet would make the gun uncontrollable on automatic fire. To make a handheld automatic weapon, the designers would need ammunition with less recoil. The gun's success would stand or fall on the design of the bullet. Kalashnikov's solution was brutally simple. Take the heavy old rifle bullet and make it shorter and therefore lighter. The M16 uses an even smaller, slimmer bullet, creating less recoil than the AK-47, so the M16 gun itself can be lighter, 2/3 as much as the AK, which was exactly what the US military wanted.
Basically, they wanted the lightest weight system that they could get. They wanted a weapon that would weigh 6 pounds, loaded with 20 rounds of ammunition. The weight was the driving emphasis on the whole design. In other words, there are a lot of things maybe you would like to do, but couldn't do because of the weight restraints.
The army people are the same everywhere. They want you to come up with weightless weapons, but there's a limit to everything.
Yeah, they like to defy the laws of physics.
The tiny bullet that Stoner came up with gives the M16 extra accuracy because it travels faster. Faster bullets are more accurate. In addition, this little round weighs half as much as Kalashnikov's lump of lead, which gives the M16 another combat advantage: light weight.
Lighter's always better. I mean, it is. Yeah, that's the bottom line, especially if you're the guy that has to carry it. The M16 round, 5.56, is a lighter, smaller round compared to the 7.62 that's used in the AK-47. What that means, really, is the capability to carry more rounds, which is what you need when you have an automatic weapon system, you know, because you go through rounds fairly quickly.
I carried as much ammo as I could physically carry and run. Any place on my body, there was ammo. Ammo in my flak jacket, ammo in my pants, ammo in my ammo belt, any place. My greatest fear is that I would run out of ammo, and I was not going to let that happen.
To compete, AK-47 soldiers had to sacrifice everything, even food.
In a real combat situation, a soldier must not take an additional can of sardines, but an extra cartridge.
So the high-tech M16 triumphs over the low-tech AK-47 in range, accuracy, and weight. But when the two weapons finally went head-to-head, it wasn't on a technical range. In the real-world combat of Vietnam, things went badly wrong for the M16.
Next thing, a tree line opens up on us, and everyone's firing back, and I lunged for my rifle, and as soon as I raised it to my shoulder and I pulled the trigger, all I heard was a click.